Welcome to the Author Roundup. This special segment of the Book Connection show features up-and-coming indie authors who sit down with us and talk about their recently released books. Join us as we chat with our next guest author. Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Emma, and welcome to Author Roundup. It's great to have you here today. Today, we have a self-published author, Jacqueline Reinig. Jacqueline is a debut author, the Faery whisperer in the land of QuillSnap, where she lives. She is a wife, mother, grandmother, a retired nurse, and hired help for her and her husband's farm operation. Hi, Jacqueline. I'm very excited to have you here and to discuss your book. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you for having me this morning.
Of course. So, can you tell us a little bit about your book? Your book was published at the end of last year, and it's called Faery Academy of QuillSnap, Night of the Purple Moon. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Okay, the Faery Academy of QuillSnap, the Night of the Purple Moon, takes place. I live in QuillSnap. My farm that I live on is the land of QuillSnap. And in the story, the heroine, the female heroine, the protagonist, Tansy, is only about the size of an acorn or a thimble. And so if you're only this big and you're out on my farm is a whole land, the whole realm of where the story takes place. And that's kind of how the whole thing came to be when, as we live out on the farm, we have what are called windbreaks. And windbreaks are, we plant trees to break up the wind around here. And we have 300 foot of evergreen trees that are now about 50 years old. And a couple summers ago, my husband and I went through the branches that are dead, that don't get sun, and then they die and they're brittle and they're a fire hazard. So we cut them down, making this pathway, this cathedral walk through for 300 foot that became the enchanted forest. And that's right outside my house here.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute. So you and your husband built that?
So yeah, we shaped it and
Okay.
mulched it. And one afternoon, my 4-year-old granddaughter was out, and I said, why don't you come out? Let's look at I call it the enchanted forest. My husband was going to put horseshoes in it. I go, oh no, this is an enchanted forest. And so we went out there and I showed her, her name's Serafina. She was 4 at the time. And she goes, this is really neat, Mimi. And she asked me, she goes, do you have fairies in your enchanted forest? And I go, off the cuff, I go, well, of course I do. And right over here is where they live. And she was getting ready to go to preschool, so she was a little anxious about the whole school thing, and I go, "Over here, this is where they go to school because they're not born fairies. They need to go to school to learn to be fairies." So this came just that spark of creativity in a story that rolled off that afternoon, started the whole fairy academy because the fairies have to go to school. They're not born fairies,
Mhm,
and it all started that afternoon with that little conversation. The fairy stories became more, and
mhm.
as her and her brother wanted fairy stories at night instead of reading a book, so I would add each time they would come out to the farm, we'd go out to the enchanted forest, see what the
Mhm,
fairies had left or done, or the fairies are always up to something. They're always up
mhm.
to something. And so the fairy stories continued, and those kids are really sharp. If I repeated something that had already happened, would catch me and say, "You already told us that part." And then so then I started writing it down. So I would sit with my laptop out on my patio, and I would
Oh,
start writing, is how it the whole I did not know this was going to become a book. This started with
wow.
fairy stories.
That's so exciting. That's so cool that your inspiration came from your actual farm, the name, and then that your granddaughter, helped like create this sort of magical world and with the fairies. That's so cool. And that it actually came from like real life inspiration.
And in the title itself, the quill snap, out where the dry pine needles are from the evergreen trees. We've had some really dry weather here the
Mhm,
last couple summers. And when you walk through there, it's crunch, 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 just like quills snapping, which is
mhm,
also in the book. I tied that in with after I guess I had my title first of
Okay, yeah.
I thought maybe it was going to be, and then the quill snapping as you walk through the enchanted forest. That's what it sounds like. It's the popping, snapping, crackling of that sound and became the quill snap.
I bet your book is really visual and descriptive because that you're actually witnessing and seeing, the evergreens and the snaps. So that's really cool that your book probably has a lot of great descriptors because you're visualizing it in real life.
I live in it. I
You
sit
live
outside
it.
on my patio, and over here is the enchanted forest. When I look at, the windbreak, the evergreen lines, over the Radiance Ravine, it's got my red barn that's way over there. When the sun reflects off it, it looks like that orange color. And so those were kind of some of the what am I looking for? The word I'm looking for, the landmarks in the book.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
it came from these things. So when you're this big, these things are huge and mountainous, and the story just flowed. That I just sat on my patio, just started writing and writing and writing, not knowing it was going to become a book at
Uh,
all.
yeah. And so the fairies in your book are introduced as littles who, like you said, must prove that they have to become full-fledged fairies to earn their wings. So they have to go through training through the school. So what kind of challenges did you invoke in your book of what they had to face during training?
Well, first they have to be invited to go to the Fairy Academy. Not everyone gets to. And part of Tansy's plight when she's trapped in the human realm, she's trying to get out of the human realm with the evil guardian that has her here. And she knows she's running out of time. She's getting older and she's dreamed of going to fairy school. Her and her mama talked about it. This was going to happen. And then mama disappears and she needs to get to fairy school. How is she going to get there? And a mysterious visitor comes along and changes the course of her life. So being at fairy school, there are challenges that they first have to be accepted. Then they have their arduous tests that they have to go through. They have been being watched from birth on if
Mhm,
they're going to even be allowed to come into the school. And then the challenges that they have to face on the night of the purple moon is a very integral part for the very first year students. They
mhm,
have a task that they have to accomplish during the night of the purple moon in order to stay at the academy. If they
mm.
fail this, then they are out. And so it's a very she finds within herself going through the enchanted forest at night. The enchanted forest is lurking with dangerous creatures. I know when I go out to my enchanted forest, I have dangerous creatures out there too. I have raccoons, I have possums, I have a bit of skunk, but I have my own dangerous things out in the enchanted forest. So Tansy runs across in the fairy realm. They have different kinds of challenges out there. There's evil, there's danger, there's fine experiences that she needs to, and she is under a timetable. She has to get back to where they started making
Mhm.
their where they got the instructions. I don't want to do a spoiler.
Yeah.
Where they got the instructions on what they had to do, what their end game is, and they have to collect these certain items they have to make a special elixir that has to that lasts them the whole first year that they're there. They have to have that in order to stay in the school or they are gone. And in the title of the book, Fairy is spelled Faery. When the book went live, my daughter had called me and told me, she said, they spelled the title of your book wrong. I don't know, they didn't. Fairy, Faery, is back from the 1000 year of that was how fairy was spelled. But in the book, there are Faery fairies, and then there are Fairy fairies.
Oh, both.
But
Okay.
there is a difference. And I go, no, the spelling is correct because there's a distinction of a level of for the fairies, what the Faery fairies can do as opposed to the Fairy fairies, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
it's like a pecking order of
That's really cool that you had both in there, both spellings and both play crucial parts in your story. I like the way you did that. And also about like the trial/interview process of staying in the school. I feel like that would be a really cool part of your book that you've described. So you've mentioned the protagonist of the story, Tansy Water Sprite, correct? So what is it that makes her journey so compelling, and how does she grow throughout the story? And also, where did you come up with her name too?
Tansy, that's kind of a good one. I'm not really sure where the name came up from. When I started telling the kids fairy stories, I needed a name, and I'm not sure actually where Tansy came from. And then started doing some search on fairy names, and
Mhm.
it Water Sprite just seemed to kind of flow. I think I went through several names before I chose her, and Tansy just was a name I liked. I guess there is no
Mhm.
rhyme or reason on that. I just liked it. It was simple, Tansy, and then Water Sprite with the longer last name. When she has to overcome getting away from the evil guardian, and then she's in a whole world that she has no idea even existed. And there are some
Mhm.
family secrets that are found out through her that she was not aware of. And
Mhm.
when she gets to the school, she is with there's 16 of the new first year students. And of course, in any all girls situation, we have the dramas. And so Tansy is new. She's not like the other girls. The other girls seem very polished. They know what they're doing. And she
Mhm.
feels very inferior. She needs to find it within herself to stay because she does not want to go back to the human realm. She's got to pass this test. She's got to overcome some of her obstacles, her anxiety to do well. At some point, she's having a little bit of a meltdown that, nobody likes her. She's the queen of the klutzes. She's never going to get this right at the fairy schools. And then at one part in the story, like when all of us are having a bad day, sometimes you need to look around you and you find out you're really not having a bad day. Someone's got it worse than you. So
Mhm.
Pansy has a fairy slap epiphany moment. Her fairy guardian angel comes from within and slaps it into her that remember when you were back at the human realm and how awful things were and what your life was like, and
Mhm.
you don't want to go back, you want to go forward, you need to keep going on, you need to finish this, you can do this, you can do this, pick yourself up and knock it off and keep going
Mhm.
on. She goes forward and with more confidence, and she is going to do this.
I love that. That makes me think of the themes that you thought of when you were coming up with your book. It makes me think of courage, kind of a little like becoming of age. Did you have themes in mind when you were coming up with your book, or what do you think the themes of your book are?
I think I can. I know I can. Adversity builds character.
Mm.
Girls can do anything. Girls
Yes.
girls can do anything, and just stick with it. Don't quit. Don't quit. I found
Mhm.
that in myself in writing the book that,
Aw.
you know, don't quit. When I figured out it was going to be a book, don't quit. I was in healthcare for 40 years. I was not a writer all my life. I do not
Mhm.
have a degree in English or lit. But I had an idea. I thought a scathingly brilliant idea, I thought. And I just went with it. And when it got to be bigger than I was, then I started getting anxious, like Tansy. I was getting anxious. I wasn't sure what direction to go, that type of thing. So I saw a lot of myself in Tansy,
Mm.
and I'm going to finish this. I'm going to finish this book. Tansy's going to finish her adventure. She's going to do the best she can and see what happens, and she let the chips fall where they may. We're gonna or the both of us are gonna finish our journeys,
Yeah.
and we did.
And so what target audience is your book for? Do you have a target audience, or did you have that question in mind while you were writing it?
That's always been a challenging question for me to answer, and I think in the last week, I talked to someone that really shed some light on that because for me, it was more the middle grade,
Mhm.
young adult, and but also it carries over into adult, and the person I
Mhm.
talked to said, "If you aim for middle grade, young adult, it will carry over into the adult." I had written this for my granddaughter. It was for her 10th birthday. It did get finished and published in time that she did
Wow.
receive this. And then down the road from me is my 90-year-old neighbor who read it, loved it, She had no idea I was writing a book. Most people did not. I did not tell very many people. When I did decide it was going to be a book, that I'm going to pursue this avenue, there was some remarks kind of made that inflicted some self-doubt.
Mhm.
I already had that self-doubt in there, and then when people actually said it to me, it's like, "Well, maybe they're right. Maybe they're right. Maybe I can't write a book." But it's like, "No, I'm gonna finish it." Then I quit saying anything about writing a book. So when the book came out, it was a surprise to a lot of people, and even to some of my family, that they didn't know it was going to happen, and this was like I just kept it to myself,
Yeah.
and my husband knew I was working on it, and he did not even get to he didn't get any information until I was finished, and then
Mhm.
one night I said, "Okay, I'm ready to share." Okay? He came into my office, sat down, and I read the first 3 chapters to him, and I stopped, and I looked at him, and he goes, "What happens?" Those were the best that was the best thing he could say to me is, "What happens?" It carried his attention, and he wanted to know, he was caught up in the story, wanted to know what happened. I go, "You couldn't have told me anything any better." He goes, "Can
Mhm.
I read the rest?" I go, "No, not yet. When it's done. When it's done, you can read it later." So that was encouraging for me that he had that faith in me and
Mhm.
was supportive on this new adventure. With
Mhm.
now I'm working on a second book right now. The rough draft is almost completed, and it has gone I've learned a lot writing the first book just in the world of technology and writing, the way the whole flow goes with the editing, the publishing, all those things were a learning curve
Yeah.
for me, I know CPR, I can help you if you're choking, I can Heimlich you, I can help you with all your medical things. This was out of my comfort zone, and it was a learning experience, and sometimes very hard to
Mhm.
experience. The second book is going a lot faster, and I have more years behind me than I have in front of me, so I need to keep clipping along. I write every day at 5:30 in the morning. I am up in the land of QuillSnap, and I have a goal of so many words a day I hope to get in, and I had read that somewhere that and I think their number was 200. 200 not very good words a day is better than no words a day.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I can't remember who said that. I read that a couple years back, and it's like, okay, so I try to be at it every day. Once in a while, I do take a break, and sometimes it gives me a chance to look back and think, okay, I'm at this point. What's going to happen now? But I'm very excited when I get up in the morning. I'm going to the land of QuillSnap. What are the fairies up to today? Oh, we have a new villain. Okay, what is he going to do? What are the fairies going to do to him? And so I really enjoy that aspect of my day.
That's really cool. I love, like, hearing you talk about, your writing journey and how excited you get and also your drive, and I'm so impressed, how stuck to it and you got your book published because, doubt and like you mentioned about, other people's doubts and stuff, that's must have been really hard to go through and, like you mentioned, sometimes it's best to, like, keep it to yourself until you are confident, enough and you believed in your book and I think that's really great. Do you love it? Do you love writing? Do you look forward to it
I
every
do.
day?
I really do. I did not think I would. And when I think back in life, I've been out of high school a long time. I just had my 40th reunion I put on last year. So, 40 years ago, my English teacher, she's probably thinking, how did she write a book? She was not even a B plus student. And so I had her my children had her as well.
Oh, great.
My papers came back with a red Sharpie. She must have gone through cases, a red Sharpie marker. So looking back at that point in time, it's like, no, I'm never going to be a writer. My papers in English are terrible. Looked at all this red, yeah, if I got a B plus, I was doing like really super great. I've learned a lot through my journey with the editing and
Mhm.
things now because when I first started writing the book, I wrote it like I talk. I told the kids the story
That's how you do it.
all in first person. So the first person that did an editorial assessment for me pointed that out and said,
Mhm.
"Oh, yes, I do want my characters. I want people to see them in their minds. inter-
Mhm.
I don't want me to be telling them how they're interacting. I want them to be able to
Right.
visualize it, see it, read it, feel it, immerse themselves into this magic world. If they're going there for a couple-hour vacation, you're going to the magical land of QuillSnap. This is your mini vacation
Mhm.
for not very much, and lose yourself into that. Be be Tansy, be adventuresome. Feel the we've all felt those bad days and trials of trying to get through things. Feel that and feel the feel good moments of getting through that. And it's like, I did it. I did it. I knew I could, I think. But now
Mhm.
I really could do it. And I did.
Yeah. So speaking of like characters, so we have our protagonist and you do have an antagonist because anything that comes with a protagonist is an antagonist. Urkel, correct? Is
Yeah.
that character? So how did you come up with his character and how was it writing an antagonist versus Tansy?
Okay. And Merkel came about, and I'm not even sure how the name came about, but that was back when we were
I
out
love the names. Yeah, they're so good.
we're out in the Enchanted Forest, and I was at a loss for a name because we had had a part of our tree had we'd had lightning come through. So one of our trees had the top was like tipped over, and I showed the kids, I go, look what happened here. There was a fairy fight. Okay, and Merkel came, and they're like, "Who's Merkel?" I go, "You don't know about Merkel? Oh my gosh,
Mhm.
Merkel does not like the fairies. She is not part of them. She used to be, but she's not, and she does not want them to have fun. Merkel's world is dark and black and full of revenge and darkness in her heart. So writing the character for her was, I don't know, I guess I put all my ill thoughts or my bad life experiences into that person, and it comes out that way, I guess, is the best way to explain that. And so when my granddaughter was reading the prologue to me, or actually when she got into the chapters, it's after the prologue, and then she's reading it out loud, and her brother's down the hall in the room, and my granddaughter goes, "And Merkel's in the book?" And my grandson, he pokes his out, "Merkel's in the book? Oh boy. Oh boy, it's not gonna be good for the fairies at all." And no, she's kinda Merkel's very devious, and she's gonna get those fairies, she's gonna have her revenge. So, for the kids to see that she was actually in the book was,
Mhm.
it just made it all come together for
Yeah.
them.
So your book definitely intertwines magic and nature into, the fairy world. And we've talked about the nature elements, but what about the magical elements of the fairy realm? How did you come up with the magical aspect of your book?
The magical aspect kinda came of as I was decorating out in the enchanted forest, we added little, fairy doors, different fairy things, and as I put the things out there, I I looked at them in a different way. I used to coach a creative problem solving team, and we
Mhm.
told the kids, and this was a high school team, how would you creatively solve this problem? So I would look at things that I put out into the forest. How would I make this be creative? This is just a little fairy window. This is just a little fairy door. What do you do to make it creative? So I drew
Mhm.
on that past experience. Looking at those things, I would look at something for a while, and then I would think about it, ponder about it, make it be bigger, smaller, multiply it. It's like, what would be the weirdest thing I could make it do?
Mhm.
Right now it's just a plain door, but what can I do to make it?
Zhuzh that.
And all of a sudden, I'd write notes to myself. Somebody would say something, and it would just catch my ear that, okay, that's kind of interesting thought. Okay, then I would write it down. I have a little notebook that I write things down, and later I go back and I look at those notes, or I make a sketch of something I've seen, maybe something in a magazine, a catalog, something I saw out on a drive. And I would sketch that down. It's like, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that, but I may pull it in later. And then I go back and look at my sketches, and it's like, oh, this this will work. This will be great. I'm going to make this be bigger. I'm going to add this to it. And that's just how some of the magical things came to be, was piecing together different things, different items, either from nature, from my imagination, or from what I experienced in real life.
Gotcha. And so if you could attend the Fairy Academy of QuillSnap yourself, what kind of fairy do you think you would be?
What kind of fairy would I be? I would be like Miss Phoebe. I would like to be the leader. I wish I was as smart as she is, and
Mhm.
she in book 1 is the top. She is the top fairy of distinction, and she's beautiful, and she's witty, and she's smart, and she's able to juggle, all different things all at the same time. And
Mhm.
sometimes in my life, I feel that I am that way. I can multitask fabulously under pressure. Sometimes I'm given too much free time and I don't have things I have to do on a deadline. I kind of sit back and don't do them. But Miss Vivi is always going. She is always going, and I see some of myself in her, and that's where I would like to be at.
Okay. And what would you say your granddaughter, what kind of fairy do you think she would be?
She's trying to figure that out as she was reading the book.
Oh.
She goes, "Now, is this?" I go, "You have to read the book." She goes, "Well, this sounds like." I go, "Well, you have to read the book." And then she'd read a little bit more. "Oh, I don't know that one." Sorry about that. And then she would read further and she goes and she would look at me and she goes, "I know, I need to read the book." So
Oh.
I think she's trying to figure out too if she is in the book, who she is in the book, and who are the people in the book. Are they real people? And I told her, I said, "Well, honey, on here it says everything is fiction, and so it's people that made up in my mind." And she
Mhm.
kind of looks at me, "I don't know about that maybe." And my husband, when he was finally reading the book, he was sitting the one night and he was laughing. I go, "What are you laughing at? What part are you on?" He goes, "I'm just wondering who you were thinking of when you wrote this character." And I go, "Well, it's all fiction." He goes, "I think maybe you had somebody in mind." And, sometimes you go to work and you have work situations that happen and something kinda
Yeah.
sticks in your mind, either a funny situation or a not funny situation. Sometimes that gets maybe put into a character. It helps build that character's background or mannerisms. And so I think my granddaughter is trying to figure out, is okay, what about Tansy? Is she Tansy? Is she one of the fairies? She wants to go to fairies. She wanted to go to fairy school too when she was little. And mermaid school and fairy school. And so I think she as she reads, she's trying to figure that out too,
Mhm.
which one that she
That's
wants to
cute.
do.
That's exciting. And so have you always had a love for fantasy and adventure when you were little?
I have. Years ago, people didn't travel as much as they do now, and the town that's closest to us is a town of about 200 people, and we used
Uh-huh.
to have what was called a bookmobile would come to our town every Thursday night. Okay, and it was basically like a van now, it's the closest thing I can equate it to, full of shelves of books, and it came from our library in the biggest town, which is 8 miles away. Doesn't seem that far away, but you just did not drive, like we do now. So 50 years ago, we did not just get in the car and run, to the library to go get a book. So the library came to you, and there were a couple books I read and the one I actually did get for my granddaughter for Christmas a year ago. Those books were still available, and it was about a magical cat. It was a series of 3 by Barbara Slay that I really enjoyed, The Cardinal King of the Cats. And there was also another magical book that I read that I wished I remembered the name of, because it brings me a lot of, the walking through the grass and the encounters just walking, you meet the ants, you meet the bugs, you meet the ladybugs, yeah, as you're walking through the grass when you're, so little. And I do not remember the name of that book, but that has stuck with me, and I've thought back on that a lot, that I wished I knew what that book was because I really remembered enjoying that and I wished it never ended. And so I remember losing myself into that. I was probably maybe 10 years old or so. I mean, I'm old enough to remember it, but not to remember the name.
I don't
Yeah,
yeah.
the fantasy of it, despite being a avid Nancy Drew reader back in the day. I mean, I think I had all her books, but I did like the fantasy, the magical, the things
Mhm.
that can happen or things that they wish it could be. I
Mhm.
recently did a World Read Out Loud Day for some kids in Texas. I did a 6th grade
Really
class,
cool.
like about 5 different sessions, and the kids they had some really interesting questions, and the one question, the one boy asked me, "If I had a superpower, what would it be?" It's like, "That's a good one." And if I had a super I told him, I go, "If I had a superpower, my superpower would be to see into the future, so I would make better decisions." I think
Mm,
in life, every day is a fork in the road moment for us when we get out of bed in the morning. We every day starts, hopefully it's gonna be a good day. Hopefully we don't wake up with a sense of dread every morning when we wake up. But from the time you get dressed in the morning, things happen, the phone rings, you get an email, a phone call, and
you
then
never know.
your day goes. When I was coaching the creative problem solving team, they would be given part of their problem that they had to do was they were taken into a room and were given like 2 minutes to solve a problem within 1 minute. It was like a real quick kind of thing. So you had to teach the kids to think quick on their feet. So every day, and that was called instant challenge. Every day is an instant challenge because we never know what's going to happen to us. Life can change in a heartbeat. As I saw, in healthcare, things can change very quickly for whatever reason, or, that package gets delivered to the door and it's like, oh, what somebody sent me something for no reason. Someone sent me a little fairy one day because she thought I needed a fairy for the top of my tree. It was just a total surprise. It's like, oh, this just made my day. This is just like a fun thing. And your whole demeanor for the whole day changes. So you never know, like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. Are you gonna get one of the gooey
Mhm.
dank ones, or are you
Yeah.
gonna get a good caramely, nutty coconut one? You
Mhm.
just never know. So in the land of QuillSnap, every morning, I never know. I never know what are they gonna do? What's gonna happen?
Nice.
And so that's how I felt, writing the Fairy Academy of QuillSnap. I just enjoyed it so much that I wrote more than I was 30,000 words over what the requirements,
Mm,
and so
wow.
I had to make some serious cuts, and so I
Mhm,
learned the hard way on doing that, and just with writing the first book, I've grown in writing the second book. Will there be a third?
mhm,
Maybe, I don't know, but this has been a very fun thing for me, very exciting. It was a very exciting moment when that first book came.
mm,
My dad is in a nursing home, and he's not doing very well, and I had to talk to
mhm,
people about it. I'm hoping to get a book to him that he can see that I actually did publish a book, and they sent one out right away, and I can remember when that book came that first day, and the UPS man brought it. He goes, "Looks like you got a book." I go, "That's
my
mine."
book.
Hand it over. He goes, "You picked it up?" I go, "I did." He goes, "Well, I didn't know that." I go, "Not many people do." He goes, "Open it up." I go, "No, I have to wait for my husband." My husband was in the field. I go, "I have to wait for him to come. He needs to be here with me." So opening that first box up was just a moment that just brought tears and champagne, and it was just it's really happened. It really has happened. It was so exciting. Then when I ordered my big set of books, I did a video out in my enchanted forest. I felt that was the fitting place to open it, was out in the enchanted forest on the table and chairs that I write about. And that was just a very big moment for me. I did it on Facebook because people were watching. They saw the boxes on day one.
Mhm,
And then on the next day, then I was actually opening them up. So people didn't know. Very few people knew. And then as I opened up, I am holding up, I my first novel, the Fairy Academy of QuillSnap, The Night of the Purple Moon, written by me, and people were like, and then
mhm.
the flooding, from Facebook was just, and the texting was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know you're writing a book." And I said, "Not many." So
Yeah.
it was very, very exciting. It's been a very exciting time for me. It's opened up a lot of different things outside of my comfort zone, doing book events, the interviews, not so hard. I've done different things in my life that there have been interviews for. The electronic things have been challenging for me.
Mhm.
Things it's an ever and always changing world, the electronics are, and I'm an old
Yeah, for
11.
sure.
So learning the new tricks is a little hard sometimes, but I'm getting there. I've got someone that will show me how. I need a 12-year-old, I think, sitting beside me at
I
all
know, right?
times here. but it's been a lot of fun, despite the challenges. I keep learning and hope
Mhm.
you to learn.
Yeah. And so I don't think I've asked, when did you first start writing this book and how long did it take to complete it? I don't think we talked about
Okay,
that.
the finished product that it went to the publisher was probably 2 years ago right now, and I
Okay.
had on it so that's when it got to the publish for the first editor that I
Mhm.
talked to was 2 years ago, and so I probably worked on it 5 years before then because I was still working at the time when the book started. When I started the book, started writing it down. I think that's
Mhm.
right with the time frame, probably 4 to
Okay.
4 to 5 years ago, and
Okay.
well, the 2 years for the publishing aspect, but yeah, it was slow going. I had written it first in a Word document that was just one long document. I just wrote like I talked, and then after I hit about 50,000 words, and my kids mentioned to me that you might want to put some chapters in that. You might want to separate that out. And are you doing a book? And that's when at first I realized I had that many words.
Mhm.
A book. Okay. Then I started looking at it differently. And then I had learning the hard way. I had to get better programs and things like that. So the second one I've been working on it for about a year in between the edits of the other first book. So it's gone a lot faster for me. So I learned, but then at the time, like I said, at the time I was working. I also work on the farm during, September, October is usually our very busy time.
Mhm.
We do a lot of traveling. And so we spend our month after harvest, we're just exhausted, but we do spend time on the beach. That is
Mhm.
like to go. So we spend about almost 2 months on the beach during the year. And I have for years I had taken my laptop with me because when I was working still in healthcare, I was going to sit at the beach, and I was going to write. There's too many distractions. I need to write where it's quiet. I need
Mm,
that's why at 5:30 in the morning it's
it's
quiet
perfect.
and it's perfect for me, and that's where I get my most work done, is
Mm,
okay, I've gone to some creative writing classes, and they've got the music jamming and going, and that
I
kind of
just
thing, and
love it.
that's harder for me to concentrate. Sometimes when
Mhm.
I go to that, I'm doing more of a grammar check, and that type of thing is what I can do in that environment, so I really need to think and quiet. I
Yeah,
really
everyone's different. Yeah.
exactly. You get your creative juices flowing a
Yeah,
different.
so have you experienced writer's block?
I don't think so. There were times when in the Fairy Academy, I was trying to at the end, towards the end, it's like my peak needed to be higher, the valleys needed to be lower. It's like, the stakes, I guess, in writing, the stakes needed to be higher. The stakes needed to be
Okay.
higher. And maybe I was too wordy, too descriptive. I got told I had a lot of fluff. So I had to cut some of my description down because I again, I write like I talk. I'm a storyteller. I give in if somebody wants to know, what happened, well, there's all the lead up to what happened, and there's what happened.
Exactly,
And so if you hear it from my husband, you get what happened. You don't get the lead up, you get what happened. And so I think that's just the difference between men and women on
yeah.
on
100%.
telling a story. So I'm not really sure I had a block. There were times I just did not have time to write. And
Mhm.
so I would sit for a while, then I had to refresh myself. It's like, okay, where did I end up with? Then I look at that, it's like, oh, that's really good. That's really good. Did I have a glass of wine when I wrote that? Because that was really good. I don't remember writing that, but it's been a while since I looked at it. Then I'll look at something else. It's like, oh, what was I thinking? This is not very good at all. Oh, I don't know what I was thinking here. So sometimes when I've been away from it for a while, I'm
Mhm.
looking at it like in a whole new light because it's like what I thought was great at one time is now not. What I thought was not very good. Oh, this is brilliant. I can't believe I wrote this. So it's kind of funny on how that
Yeah.
is for me.
And so what has been the nicest review or feedback you've received about your book? And I have to know, like, what your grandkids thought about the finished product.
Okay, the nicest feedback I got, and it was one of the first reviews I got after I had put it on a classmate of mine who lives a ways away, and she was one of the really smart kids in school, and she wrote on there, I mean, within days of it going live, that
Aw.
this is a really enchanting, well told story that I thoroughly enjoyed. I was like,
Oh, that's so sweet.
"Oh, that's so nice." And I had to send her a thing in Messenger. I go, "Thank you." It was like that was a really good one, and then I got a Christmas card from one of my other friends that's moved out of state and said, "I really liked Birdie." And Birdie's the lady beetle. She said, "I
Aw,
really liked her. I thought she was humorous, she was funny, I really enjoyed her." So that type of feedback is what I take going into another book. Now with
mhm.
the grandkids, okay, the grandkids are 10 and 8. The 10-year-old has read it. She loved it. She was going through and after she had read it all, then she asked me questions and she goes, "Well, this is right here, and this is where we would sit when we go to the enchanted forest." I go, "It is. This is
Aw,
right here." And so sometimes when I needed, inspiration, I would go out and sit in the enchanted forest. The table and chairs that there are a couple sketches, illustrations in the book, and that is where I would sit, and I could see the sunset, I could see the whole forest, and I would sit out there with one of my kitties. I'd sit there and I would write, and I told my granddaughter that, "Yeah, this is exactly where I wrote." She goes, "It's just like this." And they knew that the majestic maple tree is an icon in the book, and this is right here. And, so they look at things differently. The 8-year-old has not read it. His
right,
mind he's in a Minecraft zone. And as I'm talking to him and writing a book too that I dedicated the first book went to my granddaughter for her 10th birthday. So I hope to have the second book out and published by the time he turns 10. And I asked him for input and go, "It can't be Minecraft. Someone else already has Minecraft. I need something more." And so
something
we have these conversations, but it always comes back to Minecraft. So I'm trying to so he's not ready yet. The reading
yeah,
level is a little bit above for him. For a 10-year-old, she struggled with a little bit of the vocabulary, but she did really well with it. Some words are just eloquence and elegance that are just
a little harder.
little harder word for her, but she got through it fine and really enjoyed it. And the fact that my cats are in the book. And so she really enjoyed it. And she enjoyed my when I had my book launch party, she had drawn a picture. There's a map inside the book, and she had drawn her version of the map, and I'd put it in a frame, and I had it sitting on a table. And she came and sat with me for a while, and the book launch party was above. I didn't think anybody was going to come, and to my surprise, I had a couple hundred people. I live in a small community, and the
Oh
place
my
was
gosh,
packed. I signed books for 5 hours. It was very
that's amazing.
overwhelming, the support of people that came out. And then when Serafina's sitting beside me, and some of the girls I worked with knew her and go, "Serafina, will you sign our book?" Oh, she thought that was she was Hollywood. She was
So
signing
cute.
books, just like I was. And I asked her afterwards, I go, "What'd you think of that?" And she goes, "I have liked it. That was fun. This was really fun." So it was kind of a impromptu thing that happened, and so now her name is in, some of the books. Uh,
Yeah.
so it was a very fun night. That was the book came out a little bit sooner than I thought it was going to, and the book launch party was kinda thrown together because we were getting ready to leave for a trip, and it's like, "Okay, well, hurry up and do this book launch party." It's right before Christmas, and it was word of mouth on Facebook. There were no formal invitations that went out,
Oh,
and
wow.
people came from everywhere, from 4-hour drive away, friends of mine came, my relatives came from a ways away. It was just overwhelming the amount of support and the number of people that said, "I didn't know you're writing a book. I didn't know you're writing a book."
Mhm.
And we had just
Yeah.
had our 40th reunion. I had a lot of my classmates came. "You didn't say anything at the reunion." I go, "No, I really didn't tell people." That that
Yeah.
that's just no, until I towards the end when I knew it was going to actually I saw the finished product. I didn't have one yet, and then I did tell a couple people that, "Oh, by the way, I did write a book." I
By the way, I'm an author.
"You did?" I go, "I did. It's good
Yeah.
it's gonna be out there." And, well, actually, it was actually we actually saw it on a website before I actually had one in my hand, but rather surprised, and it's like, "Okay, well, I need to get a book in my hand then."
Mhm.
And it was just it that moment, holding the book for the first time, the book launch party was huge. There's been several events along the way that have just been huge, and the support of people out coming towards me and
Mhm.
remarks about the book have just been
So nice. Yeah.
overwhelming, and I never thought a year ago at this time, we were still going through the editing process. My husband had just had a new knee put in, and so the month of February in Iowa, you don't really go anywhere because it's crazily cold like it was last week, like
Mm,
you guys as well, and you don't go any more than you have to if when it's 10, 20, whatever below, and I was
yeah.
taking care of him, I was doing the edits, and I'm thinking, "I'm never gonna get through this." It's just like my old English paper with all the red Sharpie on it, only now it's digital and it's little red dots and little comment clouds and things like that I had to learn to deal with. But it's
Yeah.
to be in this moment right now is still
Yeah.
surreal for me, it's still new, and I have a lot of events coming up on my in my life that I'm looking very forward to, and it's just been great.
I can't, like, believe how, like, incredibly special your book is as far as, like, how your granddaughter, helped, like, start all this and how much, like, of a family special book it is. How does that make you feel knowing that your book will be forever there for your granddaughter, for her kids, for her grandchildren? How does that make you feel that it's like a family legacy book that will forever be a special, bond between you and your kids and your family?
Exactly. It's my legacy that I leave behind. It will always be there. And my grown children, I'm not sure if everyone has read the book yet. Everyone's is working and does their own thing. That if
Mhm.
they read through it, and like my husband as well, if you read through it very carefully, you're going to find nuances from their childhood, from the years of growing up. That if you put two and two together, you'll think back that, oh, I know where she's getting that from. That came from that one time with such and such, or we were at this place and I said this. So if they read through it very thoroughly, and it might not be until I'm gone that they sit down and read the book very, very intently and scrutinize everything because everything has a meaning that happened in our lives. And so when they take that time to do that, I mean, right now, I think they're trying, read through it and, "Okay, good book, mom, good book." Okay,
It's amazing. It's great.
that would be my son, the girls
Yeah.
is a little bit different, and maybe the audiobook is coming. I'm not sure when that's gonna be, but it'll be coming, and that might, have maybe get a little bit more of an input from my son that way. He's more apt to listen to it than he is to read it
Yeah.
with his
Okay.
sketch and things. But yeah, it's very special to me that this will always be out there. I was as I'm working on this on the second book, I had just had a surgery 4 weeks ago, and I was kind of concerned. Being in healthcare, you know enough to
Yeah. Mhm.
sometimes be dangerous to yourself. And
Yeah.
it was kind of a big surgery. I really wanted to have that rough draft done in case something happened. And I talked to my husband about this several times. And, for not, I'm here. Everything's fine.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
so he goes, "You worried for nothing." It's like that's what I do best is I worry. But anyway, so yeah, just knowing that that will always be there for the kids that
Mhm.
and their kids is very, very special to me, especially as my husband and I are getting older and his parents have both passed away. And the things that in their life that were important to them were things, as you're going through their possessions and stuff, some of it had very little sentimental attachment. The things that did, the pictures or maybe the letters, that type of thing, the tangible objects, not so much. So you really I look at that things differently. That way,
Mhm.
my kids, if something happened to us, our kids would come in and they would take this stuff and put it on auction and, and it would go. But the book would be there forever, I think.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah. It will. Well, so you said that you're working on the second book. Are you finished with that one, or are you still working on it, or how's that one going?
The rough draft is pretty close to being done. I'm at as of this morning, I'm at about 88,000 words. So
Okay.
I need to again, I need to go through and make sure the stakes are higher, the valley's deeper. I need to fine tune some things, and then I'll go through the rough draft again. So it's going really well. It is going really well for me. I think anyway, faster than the first one. Again, I've learned a lot in 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 what I've learned from the first book.
So I think I just have one last question for you, and that is what's the number one message or feeling you hope readers take away from your book?
I hope they take away from the book that if you have a dream, go for that dream. You're never going to know unless you try. You know, you've heard the phrase, shoot for the moon, you'll land in the stars. And for people writing, you need to keep writing. Everyone has a story. Between your birth certificate and your death certificate, this is what you did in between. This is
Yeah.
your story. Everyone has a story, either their memoirs, a cookbook, a book to better yourself. We all have a story. We all our experiences in our life have all led us down a path that there's a story worth telling. Somebody learned something from that story. And from the story, Tansy's story in the Fairy Academy, if someone learns to, stick to it, I'm going to finish it. I'm going to finish this project. I can do it. I can do it. Yeah, things are a little tough right now, but tomorrow's another day. Things will look different tomorrow. I can do
Mhm.
this. It's the way I felt writing. Tomorrow's another day. When there was a something that took me back a little bit,
Yeah.
tomorrow's another day. Tomorrow's another day. Okay, sit back down and go through it. So I hope people take away that her endurance, girls can do anything. And these fork in the road moments, do you go left? Do you go right? Impact what we do. We don't always know what that's going to be. If I had that superpower of being able to see into the future, I would know if I take a left or a right at that particular moment in time. I hope people take away a good feeling of the book. They lost themselves into the magical world of QuillSnap and enjoyed it and feel like, yes, I can do this too.
Nice. Just speaking to you and realizing just like how inspirational you are, I think just this is just my perspective. I think you should write a self-help book or like you said, like a girls can do anything book because I love like what you shared today and how like inspirational and motivating you are. So that could be an idea too, you know.
I have
You're very good at it.
I have lots of ideas, and my brain is like a swirling snow globe of ideas, glitter and snow and things like that. So I have so many things in my mind that I want to do. One of the things I read when writing the book is that only work on one book at a time. And I did kind of sneak in, and I had another idea I wanted to go off on, and I did start a little bit on that because I had a whole bunch of points I wanted to write down. I at least wrote the notes down, and so
Mhm,
I may go down that avenue. And in my own life experiences, being in the medical world, also being in the entertainment field, somewhat, that was a whole different life a long ago that it was very interesting that I always told the girls, "I'm gonna write about my adventures because this is like a world I didn't even know existed." So there's all kinds of things I could yeah,
yeah.
my brain goes faster than my fingers go.
Yeah.
I've been trying to defrag the thoughts and get the thoughts together. I had read that people that are writers, they're either plotters or pantsers, is probably something you're familiar with. It was news to me. And then I read about it, and it's like, okay, plotters, I want to be a plotter. I want to be able to write out my outline, follow it faithfully, and finish my book. I don't
Mhm.
work like that. I'm a pantser. I wrote my outline for the second book. I didn't do it for the first one. I had no outline. The second book, I wrote an outline, and it's like I'm way off the tangent on that. It was looked good,
It looks good
right?
initially, yeah. You
But
never know.
I just flew off on this tangent, and it's like it took me down
Mhm,
this rabbit hole of magic, and it's like then this idea sprouted, and, it's just like being on the internet. You Google something, and your eye catches on something else,
and
and
then
it's like
you're off.
you're off, and it's like, "No, what was I looking for? I was looking for something else," but So sometimes it's easy to go down that rabbit hole and get lost, but sometimes that's where a great idea comes from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I think that's all the time we have today. Do you have any other thoughts that you want to share with us today? Any way readers can reach you, a website or anything like that?
Yes, I do have a website. It is under my name, Jacqueline, like Jacqueline Kennedy, President Kennedy. So Jacqueline Reinig, REINIG.com. So I do have a website there. I've learned to blog. And so that's been a little bit of a challenge. I'm getting the hang of it. It's getting
Mhm.
better. My website is now officially working. And so yeah, through the website, I'm reachable. There's information on there. And I do try to update what I'm doing
Okay.
type thing. But anybody that's writing, again, you everyone has a story. Don't
Mhm.
quit. I do have a couple friends I know that have written books. They finished them and they're in a drawer. They didn't like
Uh,
it and didn't pursue it. They started another book. I go, "Really? You wrote a whole book and you didn't do anything with it?" "No, I didn't really like it." And
uh,
I have a hard time envisioning that after I spent all the time that I spent on my I couldn't think about even putting it back into a drawer and not finish it. I need to finish telling this story. And so I think there's a percentage out there, the number of people that start a book or people that you talk to, and I said, I've written a book. Oh, I want to write a book too. I'm going to write a book, or I started a book. When you talk to people, there's more people that share the information but they have not finished it. And I think the percentage is 1 in 6,000. I think I read that at one point. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but it might be very well true because of the more people I talk to about the book, I find out, oh, I started a book, or I have a book in a drawer. And I
mhm.
find that really sad. It's like, I don't go back and finish it. So finish. I think
Yeah.
finish is one of my girls at creative writing class. She's such a great storyteller. She is wonderful. I go, you need to write a book. She goes, I'm not a good finisher. It would never get finished. She goes,
Um,
no, I know myself. And it's like, and I thought about that myself too, over the time frame that it took me to do this. It's like, yeah, this will never be anything, but it did. I'm proof that
mhm.
it happened.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of that's what editors are for, to help you.
Exactly. Yeah. You're the writer. They're editors.
I got this great idea, help me get it on paper so it makes better sense, better flow,
Mhm.
and makes
Yeah.
it for the reader to follow, and it makes sense. To me, it makes
Yeah.
sense. Sometimes I read it out loud, it's like, "Oh, that doesn't make sense at all." But fin
Mhm.
finish, write and finish it. You can do it. You can do it.
That is great advice. Well, thank you so much, Jacqueline. It was so nice to have you on today. Thank you for sharing your story, and we wish you all the best with your second book and or third book.
Thank you, Emma. It was a pleasure visiting with you this morning, and thank you for taking the time to talk with me.
Oh, of course. Well, thank you so much for listening and watching. If you would like to purchase Jacqueline's book, you can head to archwaypublishing.com, or you can also head to Amazon and Barnes& and Noble as well. And I thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time in my next interview.